Hey YouTube, coming at you again today with a little segment that I'd like to call Library Lagniappe. Now, mainly I'm going to use this to offer tips that are in my large fish keeping library, and I would highly recommend to anyone that wants to keep fish and do it well and do it successfully to find and buy and develop a very large and varied library of books. We all want to spend money on new filters, we want to spend money on new plants, we want to spend money on new fish, we want to spend money on the latest whiz-bang gadgets. And that's all well and good, but there is a vast reservoir of knowledge out there that's very critical to fish keeping. And you're going to find it in a library, in your own library, in books that you can read and peruse and study and mark up and highlight and use to develop your skills in this fish keeping hobby. So what I'd like to do is each week run through a list of books and give you tips from those books. And some of them I'll talk about, and some of them I'll just give them to you. So, it's plagiarism. I'm going to give you the name of the book, the publisher, the date of publishing. The first one that I'm going to read from is The Aquarium Survival Manual, a comprehensive guide to keeping freshwater and marine fish. And it's from Barron's. And it was published, the last version was 2005, the copy that I have. And I would strongly recommend that you not buy this book, but that you buy lots of books. And you can go to places like libraries when they have book sales. You can go to places like Half Price Books, which is where I picked this copy up for $5. So there are ways to gain a large library that don't have to break the bank. So this little section that I'm going to read to you is fish, their habitats, and their adaptations. Thanks to the process of evolution, fish and other organisms have become adapted to suit the specific types of environment in which they live. The minimum amount of modification is seen in fish of large, moderately fast-running rivers and of the open seas. Fish living in these habitats are usually elongated and have no exceptional changes to their fins or body shape. Some of the barbs and fish like herring are typical of this type. Unless they are brightly colored, they seldom make interesting aquarium inhabitants. Fishes may be adapted to feed on insects floating on the surface, in which case they will normally have an upturned mouth, and the upper surface of their bodies will be flattened so that they can lie with their head and body close to the surface. The hatchet fish and archer fish are adapted in this way. For feeding on the bottom, the reverse is true, so that the fish's underside is flattened and its mouth undershot, as in Corydoras. Often the mouth of bottom feeders is fringed with sensory whiskers to help them find food while grubbing about in the mud. Some more ordinary shaped fish get over the problem of bottom feeding by swimming habits which allow them to literally stand on their heads. So, in this section, we're given a group of characteristics of fish which will allow us to observe a fish in a fish store tank and understand how that fish has made its way in the wild through evolution and adaptation. It's an incredible piece of knowledge that will describe to you the way a fish will behave, what kind of feeding actions it's going to take, and it's all from a simple observation of mouths, backs, bellies, the adaptations of the fish. That's a hell of a tip. The second tip is from Freshwater Aquariums, The Simple Guide to, by David E. Borshowitz, and it was published by TFH, and I don't see a publishing date there. 2001, this copy, which, by the way, I picked up for $6 at half-price books. And this one is about keeping your tank. And this section has a part called Eating Like a Fish. Overfeeding is the second pitfall, and there are 2 bits of science to understand with respect to it. Overfeeding the tank. When fish overeat, they, like the rest of us, get fat. Obesity and fatty liver disease are problems no wild fish has to contend with, but many aquarium occupants do, and those conditions lead to health and reproductive problems. The greater threat, however, is the overfeeding of the aquarium itself. The explanation is a single word: ammonia. Yep, it's bad enough when a fish eats some food, digests it, and excretes ammonia as a waste. At least the fish removes a lot of the nutrients from the food. It gets worse when the fish is given too much to eat, since it will put out a lot more waste in this case. But when you overfeed a tank, putting in more food than the fish can consume, the uneaten food rots, producing even more ammonia. And there's a little sticky note here that says, overfed leads to death. Overfeeding is the primary cause of aquarium disasters. It is not natural for a fish to be stuffed full all the time, though generally they will gladly get and stay in that condition if you let them. A hungry fish may not necessarily be a healthy fish, but a fat one is a sick one for sure.